Welcome back to the Kevin O'Connor Show to preview the NBA Finals between the Thunder and the Pacers. It's Mo Dakhil. Mo, what's up, man?
Oh, not a whole lot, man. I'm excited, buddy. It's NBA Finals time.
I can't wait, man. Thursday night coming soon, game one. We're going to go through some of the things we're going to be watching for in the NBA Finals. I want to start out with you, Mo, with Haliburton, because with Haliburton, we know who he is. He's a savant playmaker. He limits turnovers. He comes up clutch in end-game situations, but he does take only 14, 15 shots per game. And so Haliburton's aggression is the number one thing I'm watching for, because against OKC this season, he had 22 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds over 2 full games, 64 minutes. He had his lowest usage rate against any team this entire season against Oklahoma City with a usage of 13.5%. And if you look at the matchup data, he was defended by Dort for 51 possessions. He had only 4 shots. Against Case and Wallace for 32 plays, had only 5 shots. So that's the number one thing I'm thinking about right here when it comes to if Indiana is able to win this series. To me, like, Haliburton's going to have to average 20 plus shots. You're going to have to see scorer Tyrese Haliburton. Am I right to feel that way, or am I off base to feel that way, Mo?
No, you absolutely have to feel that way. That's the only way the Pacers are going to win this series. Is shocking. Their best player has to play like their best player. And I think that's the most important thing for them, is getting him off in those opportunities and finding ways to get him opportunities. Look, we know what the Thunder's defense is all about. We know how they're going to present on the perimeter and how difficult it is just for teams in general and for scorers. We saw what they did to Anthony Edwards the last 2 games of the series. Their perimeter defense is on another level with the number of personnel they have that they could throw at him. And for the Pacers, that's the series right there. That's the starting point for them, is how are we going to get Tyrese Haliburton opportunities to attack over and over again throughout the entire series? Like, that's the first question Rick Carlisle and his staff have to answer when they're going into these meetings, getting ready for the finals. That's the first question, first topic they got to be on top of.
How much of this is about the game planning of Rick Carlisle and that staff versus Haliburton's mindset and approach in these games? Because like you'd have seen the viral stat out there about when he makes his first shot, he attempts X amount of shots. When he misses his first shot, it's like 7 less shots per game, right? Like that's the stat that's gone out there for a few weeks now. But so how much of this is mindset for Haliburton versus tactics and approach game planning from the coaching staff?
Well, for the starting point, it is mindset on his part. Is I have to remain aggressive. I have to be aggressive all night. The other side of it is schematic as well, just because the defense is going to be so stacked towards him, right? Like, they're going to load up towards him. They're going to constantly have bodies in the way, in the paint for him to, have to try to go through to get into the paint and get to the rim. Like, this is going to be something there. He can't be deterred. And it's very easy for me to say it, sitting at home, watching it, going like, you got to attack. I'm not the one that has to go through Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, Kason Wallace, and when I get to the rim, Chet Holmgren. Like, it's a lot easier for us to say it and make it so simple in that regards. But like, when you're looking at it for Haliburton, is he can't be deterred at any point in this series, that he has to be as aggressive as he possibly can. And it's a fine line, Kevin, because then you got to watch. Like, you can't force it too much either, right? Then it's just you constantly driving into a brick wall. That's going to do no good for the team. So there's like a real balance.
That would go away from who they are as well, right?
Right. I mean, and that's a big part of the way they play, right? There's a lot of different things, a lot of movement, a lot of actions that they try to run through. They're not a heavy ISO team. It's not just, hey, we just give it to Haliburton and he goes to work. It becomes a challenge for the Pacers. But I'll say this, I trust Rick Carlisle, and I feel like he's going to have a few tricks up his sleeve. Like, that's just the way he is as a coach. He does a great job. He sort of kind of adapts as quickly as he possibly can throughout the course of the series. I'm excited to watch him and see how he figures this whole thing out.
Well, are there any tricks you're anticipating, Mo, and anything that comes to mind that Carlisle could pull out, whether it's when the Pacers are on offense or when the Pacers are on defense?
Well, I think, on the offensive side, I think it's just trying to continue to run your actions. Maybe you're going to run it a little higher to spread out the floor and try to get the Thunder as spread as you possibly could in those opportunities. And I think, defensively, I think people will be, shouldn't be surprised when we see a zone from Rick Carlisle. Look, the Pacers haven't played zone, throughout most of this playoffs, if at all. And now when you're watching it, I think you're going to be surprised to see it. But you got to remember, Rick Carlisle won a championship by playing zone with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. Like, let's not act like he doesn't know what he's doing on that end of the floor. We saw the Thunder kind of struggle a little bit with Denver against their zone. We're going to have to see how that plays out with Indiana. No two zone is alike, right? Like, just because they struggled with Denver doesn't mean they would struggle with Indiana's zone. I feel like that's something Minnesota left on the table, where they didn't really go to zone a bunch against the Thunder. But I think we'll see some of that from Indiana, and I think we'll see a lot of mixing of defenses across the board from the Pacers.
I mean, on that note, Carlisle with their zone defense, if you look at OKC versus their opponents so far, Denver and Minnesota, they force you to be different. Indiana, 3.3% of their half-court possessions on defense this season were zone. They didn't play a ton of zone, as you said. They've only had 3 total possessions playing zone this entire postseason. Denver, meanwhile, 2.9% in the regular season to 36% against OKC. They used a ton of zone, 2.1% for Minnesota to 9% against OKC in the conference finals. It's like over 4 times as much. So I these teams don't want to play zone, but OKC forces you to play zone. What is it about the OKC offense that is making teams decide to play zone so much more often against them than they would normally do?
Well, I think it starts with just Shea, right? And like Shea's ability to get into the paint consistently. Look, Shea's like a 2.5 levels scorer. He's not fully a unbelievable threat from 3 yet, but that's one of those things where it's like he's still going to knock down those shots if you hang off of him too much. But when he gets to the mid range, you're almost drawing dead at that point. And then it gets to the rim, again, same situation, and then he's going to get to the free throw line off of that. I think that's the first starting point. So when you go to a zone, you're really kind of packing the paint and making it a little bit more difficult for him, but you're also banking on the Thunder not making threes. Before the series against Minnesota, they weren't really knocking down their 3 balls that well. We saw them kind of come to life towards the end of that Minnesota series, where they're beginning to make those 3 balls, and it's beginning to be kind of make it more difficult to play zone. And I think that'll be something Indiana's going to have to figure it out. And by the way, there's so many different zones they could play, right? They could, a 1-2-2, 3-2, 2-3 across the board, a 2-1-2. Like they can mix in so many things, and they have a lot of time to start kind of putting this stuff together and sort of field it all. It'll be interesting, but with the Thunder, you just want to kind of stop them from getting into the paint with ease, because all the problems begin once they get into the paint.
And ultimately, like I think with zone, OKC this postseason, they're shooting only 33.6% from 3. They have not been a knockdown 3-point shooting team like they were in the 2025 calendar year during the regular season, when they were one of the best teams in the NBA. And so when you're playing zone and you're packing the paint, and whatever way you do it, as you said, the point is to limit them from getting into the paint, getting to the basket. If you turn them into a 3-point shooting team, like I think you're going to want to gamble at that they're going to have poor shooting nights or continue to shoot as subpar as they have in this postseason, because against Denver especially, the numbers were pretty striking with the frequency OKC was taking threes. About half their shots were 3-pointers against the zone defense, significantly less against Denver's man defense, because they're able to get into the paint, get to the basket, drive and kick opportunities and all that as well. So look, man, Indiana's defense, I feel like, maybe it's because it's just in the name, the Pacers. Like we always talk about their offense and how special that is, but their defense has been so great, man, since mid-December. And ultimately, though, I still think if you're talking offense, where I opened here, Mo, I think that OKC defense is just on another level, though, man. It's just on another level.
Of course. I mean, the way the Thunder, like, here's the thing. When you go to your bench, there should be some sort of drop off in your team. I almost feel like their defense gets better. When you're bringing in Alex in that situation, like it's almost frustrating, right? Like you're almost just like, oh God,
Case and
like, okay,
Wallace and all these guys. It's like, really?
like you're sitting in a situation where you're like, oh, Lou Dort's going to the bench. Great. I'm going to have, oh crap, they're bringing Alex Caruso in. It's like,
it's
oh,
like the
like
the
what,
LeBron meme looking over his shoulder for Kawhi Leonard. It's like, but it's like constantly every guy that checks in, it's like that.
every sub. And what does it mean? It means the next time Lou Dort comes in, he's rested. He gets to come at you even more. I mean, their defense just wears you down so much. I mean, this is the thing, right? We talk about in the playoffs how important it is, like targeting the matchups and all the. There's no matchup hunting against the Thunder. They're real. I mean, like, who are you gonna? Your matchup hunting is gonna be Chet Holmgren. All right, good luck. Like you're just screwed in that situation. And I feel like you're dealing with a lot of problems with that. But the most important thing, like for the Pacers defense to be successful, their offense actually has to succeed. They actually have to be successful in the half court or transition or whatever. They have to get buckets so that they can set up their defense, whether it's man, zone, whether they're going to run full court press, whatever it is they're going to do, it has to be able to score on the other end so that they can set that up. Because when you're in a situation where it's just transition, you're going to get burned by the Thunder.
Well, I mean, and look, if you look at their regular season statistics this year, number one best team in fast break points allowed, Oklahoma City. Number two, Indiana. It's in part because their offense is setting up their defense, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, this is a funny series in the sense of like, this is kind of the Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other, except one Spider-Man is vastly bigger, the other one's a little bit smaller. Like, just the Thunder are so much better at doing the same things. And I think that's not really a surprise when you just see how good this Thunder team has been. But I also think this will create some interesting opportunities for the Pacers in the sense of like, if they're able to turn the Thunder over, and we know they don't turn the Rock over except in Game 3 in Minnesota, there's going to be opportunities for them. Like, they got to find those ways. They got to find ways to get out in transition and get buckets, just easy buckets, simple plays, just so it's not like every possession is a slog. We're able to load up on Tyrese Haliburton. They're able to load up on Pascal Siakam. Like, they're going to need everybody to kind of step up, make plays. And the one thing I'm encouraged about KOC with the Pacers, when you look at their scoring throughout the playoffs, it's pretty balanced. It's pretty wide open in defense, right? Like, cool, Haliburton may not have it one game, although we agree he still has to take a lot of shots and be aggressive, but that could be a big Pascal Siakam game. That might be a game where they need Andrew Nembhard to make a few plays. They need Nesmith to kind of make a lot of plays. Like, there's going to be some stuff there where that's what you're going to have to expect from this team. They're going to have to continue to be a little bit well-balanced at the same time as having Haliburton being aggressive.
How much confidence do you have in Siakam to have the type of games that he did against the Knicks as a scorer?
I mean, it's hard. Like, look, OG's a good defender, and that's who he kind of had to deal with regularly. But it comes down to, all right, now he's got to guard Jalen Williams, and Jalen Williams has done a phenomenal job throughout the playoffs defensively. I think he's been up and down offensively, but defensively, he's shown that he can guard up, dealing with guys like Julius Randle and so on. So I think he's going to provide a good challenge for Siakam across the board. But this is the beauty of the Thunder defense too. It's never one person. They're kind of like Liverpool. No one walks alone, right? It's your main defender, and then you have like 50 hands coming in and trying to poke at you, trying to poke at the ball, trying to strip it from you. You're really just in a really extremely difficult position. It's going to be a challenge for Siakam. It's going to be a challenge for all the Pacers. This isn't going to be a thing where we're just going to be like, oh, Siakam doesn't have it. It's like, no, he's going against the best defense, and he's going up against several defenders on a nightly basis.
Mo, before I ask you a bit more about this series, I have some news for you and for the listeners. Yahoo Sports is excited to roll out an exclusive new benefit for Yahoo Fantasy Plus subscribers, our brand new invite-only Discord server. And I will be hosting an AMA on Discord this Thursday afternoon before Game 1 tips off. For those of you watching on YouTube right now, you can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen for $10 off to become a Yahoo Fantasy Plus member today. There's a ton of cool features rolling out this entire summer before fantasy football season and before fantasy basketball season starts back up. And for everybody listening, you can take advantage of the deal at tinyurl.com/fantasy plus Discord. And please remember, spots are going to be limited to Plus subscribers only, so hop on in. All right, Mo. So when it comes to this series, you have people on, social media and talk shows talking about, small market, ratings and this and that, and tons of different angles people are talking about. You said yourself how the Thunder feel like kind of a bigger, longer version of what the Pacers are. What are you thinking about as this series is set to begin? Like, what are the themes on your mind as you're getting set to watch the Pacers Thunder?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm thinking is I want to see how the Pacers respond to game one in this environment. Look, we know the way the Thunder have played. They've had massive blowouts. I want to see if they can withstand the first punch from the Thunder off the bat. Like, I think to me, that's the first thing I want to see. Like, I'm so intrigued by the first 5 minutes of this game, Kevin, just because they're going to come out chomping at the bit. The home crowd, they're standing till they get the first score, all of that stuff. I want to know if the Pacers are ready for this. It's going to be they've played in a great environment. Look, Milwaukee's an awesome place, to play. Cleveland, obviously the Madison Square Garden, and now they're going to go into the Thunderdome basically, and now have to deal with that. Like, I'm excited to see how they respond in the first 5 minutes of this series, really, because it's going to tell us a lot right off the bat.
So look, I think that OKC home crowd's amazing. And as, is the Indiana home crowd. These are going to be two awesome crowds. Ultimately, I think Indiana's going to have to split. Like, if OKC wins those first two games of the series, I don't see it going further than 5 necessarily. I think Indiana will have to split first two games. OKC would then split, and then who knows if it gets to a game 6? Who knows what could happen? But if OKC wins these first two games at home, and they've been dominant at home, I don't want to I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting Indiana. They are a great team. They are an amazing story, and I really don't feel like they're going to go anywhere either. But this OKC team, they have answered so many questions throughout this entire postseason, with people wondering about, well, are they too young? Are they too experienced? And then they have 4 different coverages against Jokic, and they beat Denver, and they completely dominate Minnesota, and using different coverages in that last game. They had their blips, Chet missing 2 free throws, but I feel like this team grew up. They feel like, as Nick Gallo said to me on my podcast on Monday, OKC's a better team now than they were at the start of the postseason. And I genuinely do think, Mo, at the end of this, we will appreciate OKC and completely, I think most people will agree that they are indeed an all-time great defense, one of the greatest single-season teams we've seen with what they have created and what they've put together, what they have in Oklahoma City. It's just amazing what they have, the amount of flexibility and versatility they have.
There's no way to really argue that, right? About them being an all-time great defensive team. Like, just watch the way they've played. It's defensive playmakers. Alex Caruso comes in and he just kind of creates chaos in a positive way, wreaks havoc on offenses, and then they get out in transition and get easy buckets, and it leads to a snowball effect, right? Like, it's so fun to watch these kind of runs the Thunder go on, because you can see the opponents kind of freak out, and then they just compound mistake after mistake.
On that note, Mo, for there's inevitably people who are just tuning in for the finals, right? Like, can you describe some of, like, the tactical things you've seen OKC use over this postseason run? Like putting Caruso on Jokic, stuff like that. What are some things that come to mind to describe to the listener that make them understand what the greatness of this OKC defense really is?
The starting point with their greatness defensively is they have positional versatility, right? You touched on it. Alex Caruso guarding Jokic. You had Jalen Williams guarding Randall, and what that allowed Chet Holmgren to be able to be more of a safety and a floater and continue to protect the rim, because he would come off of guys like Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and guys like that. They were able to kind of position and move the chess pieces around, which would make their defense even stronger across the board. And then you have guys like Lou Dort, who's just an unbelievable individual defender. You have guys like SGA, who's an MVP, is a unbelievable defender, right? Like, you might even say he's the weakest defender, and he's a good defender at the same time.
For that, crazy.
Right? Like, he's got these long arms, he gets steals and whatnot. Like, it's not a guy like I go like, oh, I'm gonna hunt him. No, that's not how that works, right? Like, you're going to run into problems with that. And then on top of it, the other thing that they do so well, Kevin, which is a lot of fun to watch defensively on this team, they move on a string. Like they're all connected, right? When one guy goes this way, the next guy's sliding over. A big phrase we like to use is help the helper, right? They help the helper, right? Like they go across the board. They make multiple efforts defensively. They're all over the place. They're flying across the court, and it seems to just always be covered, right? And the hard thing about this is you need to move the ball against them, right? Like you fall into the trap if you go into heavy ISO stuff with them. You fall into the trap, right? And now you're really in trouble. You need to try to keep the defense moving as much as possible, but they're also just so damn good in rotation.
I mean, look, ultimately with this team, I also feel like it's perfect game planning. Like the coaching staff deserves some credit here too, because you see the way they've changed game plans against Jokic, what they did against Anthony Edwards, and just like singular plays like Case and Wallace, just the timing for him rotating over to swipe at Jokic on the short roll in certain instances where they would trap on Jamal Murray or blitz Jamal Murray. Case and Wallace, perfect timing. And that's a credit to him for having that feel, but also to the coaching staff for preparing him, showing him film, showing him the right moments. And that's to your point, Mo, about how this team just defends on an absolute string. And look, man, like there's no weak links. You said it. SGA is probably the weakest link, but he's not a weak link. He's just, you don't want to attack SGA. You don't.
It's unfair. It's unfair.
It's crazy. I just have a hard time coming up with. I have challenged myself this week ever since we learned Indiana OKC was officially going to be the matchup. I've got a hard time coming up with ways Indiana wins the series. If Indiana does win the series, what's going to be the story? Like what went wrong for OKC? What went right for Indiana? If indeed the Pacers are the one hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy.
I think it'll come down to what went right would be just obviously the Pacers will have put in a strategy. Like for me, my one suggestion in terms of, and I don't think it's a good one. So don't anybody go like you're crazy. I think you're in a situation, you have to deal with it. But my one suggestion is let SGA score and try to cover everybody else because it's just too hard, right? You can't take everything away. Shea's going to get his 30 points minimum, regardless what you do. So, hey, let's just do a better job of covering everybody else. Make it so that Jalen Williams isn't getting clean looks. Make it so that Chet Holmgren's not getting clean looks. Let's take away the big-to-big passing between Hartenstein and Chet. Let's try to make them have to really work on offense beyond SGA. And I think that's going to be the thing that we look at. But the other thing we're going to talk about is that the Pacers will have found a way to gash this defense. And that's going to be unbelievably hard. And I think it's got to be a mix of everything. They got to find ways to get transition points. They got to create turnovers for a team that's a low turnover team, much like themselves, and then get out in transition. That'll allow them to set up their defense and create opportunities for them to sort of get stops. Because it's just going to come down to that, Kevin. Like if they're going to be able to get stops, they're going to be able to get fast break buckets. And from that, they'll be able to kind of their fast-paced game will be the problem for the Thunder.
Well, your note about letting SGA score, they did a lot of that in the regular season. Maybe not purposely, but in game one.
They didn't stop anybody else. That was the other thing.
That's true. But game one, Indiana OKC back in December, SGA had 45 points, 8 assists, only 1 turnover in that game. And then in game two, he had 33 points on 23 shots, 8 assists, and 0 turnovers. That game was on March 29th. So SGA had 2 dominant performances against Indiana.
But the key there was 8 assists in both of those games, right?
Mm-hmm. If you and only 1 turnover total, only 1.
Yeah, if you can knock that down to like 2 or 3 assists, right? It's kind of the Jokic treatment a little bit, right? Let's just turn SGA into a scorer because you know what? We're not going to stop him scoring regardlessly. Like regardlessly, I don't know if that's a word. Regardless, like you're not going to
make it a word. They're changing the dictionary all the time, Mo. We can make it a word.
Why not? But you're not going to be able to stop him. Is really my point. So don't try. And I don't mean like don't try as in don't get in, just let him have free runs to the rim. Obviously defend him and work hard, but at the same time, put your focus on the others. Like this is the thing that really sunk Minnesota in that game 4, right? They were loading up on SGA and trying to get out to the shooters and whatnot. And guys like Jalen Williams hit shots, Chet hit shots. Everybody was making their shots. They were trying to take away everything. You cannot do that. You have to pick your poison, and you got to see if it's something you can live with. And I honestly think just with how good this Thunder team is, and by the way, that might not work. Jalen Williams can ball, right? Like they can create a lot of problems for you, him as a secondary guy.
Oh, man.
But you got to pick
so much better.
Here.
So much better, Mo.
Like I just don't know. Like my other thought would be, okay, we're going to focus all our attention on SGA. But if you do that, those other guys will beat you. They have enough offensive firepower on that perimeter. But can you make it a situation where SGA is going to be scoring 40, 50 points, but the other guys are getting, 6, 7 points below their average? They got a 30-point scorer in SGA, a 20-point scorer in Jalen, and Chet's around 16, right, throughout the playoffs. And then everybody else is in single digits. If you can knock down Williams 5 points, if you can knock down Chet 5 points, there's going to be a trickle effect in all of that. And I think it ain't easy. I'm glad I don't have to do it, but it's probably the one thing I would look at saying like this would be the one chance you might have.
On that note, what you're saying about like there's two ways you could look at it. You could either say let SGA get his, play single coverage with them hard, just try to avoid foul trouble and all that, but let him get his. Don't send doubles. The other side of it, as you said, send doubles. Try to force him to be a playmaker. Make other guys beat you. The issue with that, as you said, is that every guy on OKC can handle the ball. Every guy can attack a closeout and make a smart decision, make quick, instant reads on the floor against a rotating defense. Like basically at all times, 5 guys on OKC are capable of doing that. They can either shoot, they can dribble, they can obviously defend multiple positions as well. They can make quick decisions. They're smart, high IQ players. And that's true also for Indiana. I think that's the interesting thing about both these teams from a big picture standpoint, like regardless of how the finals end up, going down with whoever wins the series. But both of these teams are built pretty similarly, Mo, with the type of structure they have with so much versatility on defense, offensive versatility with the shooting and the handling and the creation, and the high IQ play. And of course, they both have stars, but it's last year's Celtics team was very much the same way, where with Tatum and Brown on the floor, they have their stars, but Derek White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, those guys can shoot. Those guys can make a read. Nobody on the floor was a defensive liability. And I think that's true also for OKC and Indiana. Are we witnessing kind of a new blueprint unfold here, league-wide, that teams are going to have to follow with the way the league is built and the way the style of play is nowadays?
I mean, we're witnessing a blueprint. Like the one thing I love about the NBA is there's multiple blueprints, and it's going to come down to how you play, how your team's set up, and whatnot. But you're right. Boston was built similarly. We've seen the way OKC was built. We've seen the way the Pacers have been built, and give a lot of credit to all those teams. The one thing they trusted most importantly across the board was continuity. No knee-jerk reactions to things. And, shout out to my friends in New York who are already freaking out after making the conference finals and having these crazy reactions of trade everybody, fire the coach, move on. Continuity matters, right? These teams trusted the system and understanding like, hey, having the same coach in place matters. Having the same core matters. We're going to tweak around the edges, like give the Thunder credit. They didn't freak out last year, right? It was their first run in the playoffs. They get knocked out in the second round. What'd they do? Hey, we got the answer. Josh Giddey, it's really a liability for us. We moved him for Alex Caruso, and look at the way we're talking about their defense, right? Like it's just making small moves around the edges. Give the Pacers a ton of credit, right? They got to the conference finals last year, played the Celtics incredibly close, got swept, right? Cool. Didn't freak out. Didn't say, oh God, Haliburton's not the guy or whatnot. They just continue to say, hey, we're going to stay with our core. And even when they started the season slowly, there was, again, no knee-jerk reaction to it, and they were able to build up. And, you said earlier, the Nick Gallo had said the Thunder are a better team now than when they started the playoffs. So are the Pacers. That's how this goes, right? Like you get better as you go, you get stronger and kind of understand your systems. I think the important thing is both of these teams trusted continuity. And that's also the same for the Celtics, right? So many failures over the years for them. And then they started to tweak around the edges. And then the next thing you know, last year they win the championship. Like there's continuity matters in the NBA. And it's something we don't really talk about enough because our reaction is as soon as there's one failure, blow it up, change it. It doesn't work, right off the bat. And you got to just sort of let it play out. And it's really important. And we're seeing the benefits of that from both of these teams in the finals.
I think you're right. But at the same time, sometimes changes are needed. Like I think there were probably OKC fans who were saying, we're really trading Giddy, a guy in a rookie contract, for older Alex Caruso, and the Celtics trading Marcus Smart away, a longtime leader of that team, for Kristaps Porzingis. And I mean, the Pacers got Siakam for a good price, of course, but like I think sometimes hard moves are also required in order to take that next step as a team as well. So continuity matters for sure with both of these teams, of having your core pieces, but also from a front office standpoint, having the courage to make those tough moves and say, these are our true core pieces and these are our expendable pieces. Let's be aggressive and go out and find somebody that we believe can be part of this core. I think it was, I forget who said it. It might have been Dagnall. I don't know. Might have even been an OKC reporter, but someone said Caruso and Hartenstein feel like they've been there for years. It's like they do feel like it, don't they? Like with those additions, it's been less than a year, but they feel like they've been there forever.
But that's also a sign of like, those were the missing pieces, right? Like, yes. That's the thing we've been talking about for all last year. We were talking the Thunder are not a good rebounding team, right? As soon as they got Hartenstein, I was like, yeah, done. They're going to be a good rebounding team. This is going to work out for them in that sense. Caruso
ability
was
to play two bigs as well, being able to do that.
All of that, like position, again, like versatility is the most important thing in the NBA. Defensive versatility, the way we talked about it with the Thunder and their defense, but being able to play a different way, being able to play two bigs, being able to play one big, being able to play five out, being able to play small, being able to play big across the board. You need to have all of those things because you never know what you're going to encounter in a playoff series, right? Like a playoff series is a book, sometimes a short book, sometimes a really long book, but it's a situation is each game's a chapter and it's going to change. Each game is going to tell its own story. And in certain games, you might have to play big. In other games, you might want to play small, but you need to have those abilities to do that. A lot of times I crush teams. I get fed up with teams when I go, you only play one style. And hey, it might be the most amazing style and it might win you a championship because nobody's able to stop you. But also, if you come up against somebody that does stop that style, you're in trouble because you don't have any other way to play. For me, that's why the regular season matters so much more, is that this is when teams should be developing their different styles or different methods to attack. And that's for the teams that are contenders and teams that are in the playoff race. Obviously, it's a different thing when you're competing for a playoff spot. You're just going to do what you have to win. But when you're in a situation like the Thunder, the Pacers got there towards the end, having that different ability matters. And I think versatility is the most important thing to me in the NBA. Continuity and versatility are the two things I would bank on if I was running a team.
So continuity and versatility. Thinking about the Knicks. Earlier this week, I had CP the franchise on to talk about my perspective that they should explore trading Cat. Obviously, they've had Cat for only one season now. We talk about versatility being necessary, having no holes on defense. My perspective is, if I'm in the Knicks front office, I'm like, yes, we had a great season. We went to a game 6. We showed a lot of potential. We're very close, but we're not going to get over the top with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson both on the floor defensively. There's too many holes. It doesn't work. And I also don't think they enhance each other offensively in the ways that I wish they had. My perspective is they should explore Cat trades. Look around. I would flip him for KD. Maybe you get something back as well because KD is so much older with only 1 year left on his deal. I'd look around. Would you also look around with the Knicks? Or what would be your perspective for them when you look at what works with the Pacers and the Thunder with continuity? Are you willing to make a trade like that? Or are you keeping Cat? Are you keeping Brunson for sure? And it's about other pieces.
I'm keeping them. I'm staying the course with the Knicks. I'm a little more optimistic than I feel like most people, especially those in New York who have never really experienced playoff success, and all of a sudden they make the conference finals, and now they're ready to bring out the pitchforks.
No. I made that post right after the buzzer or whatever it was. I said, number one priority for me would be to trade Karl-Anthony Towns if I'm the Knicks. I thought it would just be a bland, like no duh, you're Captain Obvious, type of thing response. And it was Knicks fans bringing out the pitchforks to me, saying like, you're crazy, you're an idiot. We just made the conference finals. Cat was better than Brunson. Cat was great. It's not his fault. He should have played more. It was a lot of that. So yes, there are people in there, Knicks fans, that think he should be gone. But I was shocked. There are people knocking at my door trying to take me down.
Well, the first message I got from a Knicks fan was trade Cat and Bridges for Giannis. Was the very first message I got.
A link to my tweet, right?
Like it was an automatic response. So, I think that was kind of the thing. But here's the thing I look at it with this team. And again, it goes back to continuity. This team's been together just 1 year. When you add Mikal Bridges, when you add Cat, Brunson and OG. This is
at its core, Mo. At its core,
no.
Is it flawed though?
So you can win a championship with flaws.
You get a lemon sometimes,
you can win a championship with flaws, but the tweaks you need to make are more on what Thibodeau has to do better. Let's just be honest about that stuff. Brunson, first off, defensively has to work, and I would study a ton of film on how Steph Curry defends, right? How he does a good job hedging, avoids switches, and recovers. Does a good job with his shows and all those things. That's the only film I would show Jalen Brunson. He tries to go to the movies. That's the movie that's playing. Everybody else will be screwed at the theater. He's going to go see the new Mission Impossible. No, it's just film of Steph. But I think
I want to see it. I still haven't seen it. I've been so busy. But
it's awesome. I saw it. It's great.
You did. Tom Cruise jumps from plane to plane, right? Oh my God.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You got to watch it.
We got some breaking news here. Tom Thibodeau has been fired by the New York Knicks, according to Shams. 35 seconds ago, in the middle of our conversation, Tom Thibodeau fired as Knicks head coach, according to Shams Charania. Shams wrote, Thibodeau led the Knicks to their first East Finals in 25 years, made playoffs in 4 or 5 years, and led Knicks to consecutive 50-plus win seasons for the first time since the 1990s. And yet, they made the tough move here. And so I think this speaks to our overall conversation here when it comes to whether it's trade or whether it's changing the head coach. Sometimes the tough decisions are what's necessary to put a team over the top. Do you think this is a necessary one for the Knicks, though, in order to take the next step next season?
I think this is a knee-jerk reaction. And when I look at it across the board, I don't know if this is something that I'm going to say, oh, that's going to pay off. That's going to be a big – listen, we have to wait, see who they hire. It's obviously everybody's going to start screaming Michael Malone because that's the hot name that's going to be on the market across the board. Also a very unflexible person as well as a coach. I
would not hire Malone. Malone also, I want him in broadcasting. He seems tremendous with his little stints on ESPN.
But I think that's going to be the thing that I think everybody's going to be pushing for. That's been the name constantly.
Talking about the Spider-Man name, you get the same guy, just a different name.
That's what I'm saying.
Plays the starters too many minutes. He's stubborn. Same dude.
I don't know what coach comes in and really changes things. The one thing I'll say is whoever they bring in, I hope they open up the rotation. I hope they're willing to kind of bring in a little more experimentation in the regular season, which is something I think was a big Thibs flaw. And the other thing I want to see put together, more importantly than anything else, is I want to see an offensive structure. Because this team begs to have an offensive structure, a construct in which they can live in. And really, that's where they will maximize everybody. Because that was the other problem with this team. As good as they were offensively, it was all Jalen Brunson. And once teams started, putting their centers on Josh Hart and putting a wing on Cat, and then switching those pick and rolls, that great pick and roll between Brunson and Cat fell apart. But I think ultimately this team needs to have a structure that utilizes Mikal Bridges, that utilizes OG Anunoby, which takes some of the pressure off of Jalen Brunson offensively, off of Cat offensively, and say, hey, some of that time you're not, and some of that energy you're not expending on offense anymore, we need you to expend on defense. And I think that's going to be the important thing there for them. That's what I want to see in their next coach, is them putting in an offensive construct and structure together that will maximize everybody. Because that's the one thing I didn't think Thibs did. And I'm a little bit surprised they fired him. I was of the ilk of like, I wasn't going to fire him. I would have brought him back. But it's going to be fascinating now to see what happens next season for them.
I think everything you said, Mo, is spot on, except we disagree on the decision to fire Thibs. I think it's the right choice. His stubbornness is part of the reason why they were playing catch up during the postseason all year long. You know, ever since Mitchell Robinson comes back, they barely played any two bigs at all during the regular season. Before Mitchell Robinson was playing, I know they don't have the same level bigs, but we didn't see any two bigs next to Karl-Anthony Towns the entire year, playing catch up in the postseason. Jalen Brunson goes out in March into April. They were forced to play through other guys, forced to play through Bridges, forced to play OG Anunoby. We saw those guys produce. We saw what they could do with the ball in their hands, and yet they fell right back to a lot of that throughout the postseason because they didn't have these reps. They didn't have it ingrained into the fabric of the system. And I put that on Thibs. I think Thibs, above all else, you know, it works. Like, they were in the East Finals. What his approach of leaning on the starters a lot, leaning on Brunson, leaning on what works, it's part of the success. But also, I think it puts a cap on what their ceiling is when you see what Indiana does, when you see what Oklahoma City does, playing through different guys, having certain guys who can go off for 20 points, riding certain guys depending on matchups. Thibs has always relied so much on what works, whether that's his rotations, having the starters play so many minutes, or whether it's just running pick and roll and ISOs over and over and over again with his best player instead of developing a system of sharing with the half-court offense. And I don't think that would change. I don't think it would change moving forward under Thibs. And ultimately, it depends on who they're going to hire. I don't think Malone would be the best choice. He's just the number one name that comes to mind as the most proven head coach on the market. But I wonder if they could look at somebody that's a no-name, a longtime assistant, somebody like that. If that ends up being the direction that they go, we'll see what Leon Rose and that Knicks front office does. But I think it's the right choice. I do think it's the right choice, Mo.
I do have one name I want to throw out there.
This
is me being wild.
It is
reckless.
Mo.
It's me doing just while you were talking my thought. Bring Jeff Van Gundy back to the Garden.
Yeah!
Let's go. Woo! Let's go. Bring it. That's who I want now as the coach.
Yes.
I thought he did a great job as an assistant with the Clippers. They credited him for the defense. I think he'll challenge Brunson defensively with all that stuff. If we're going to do this, bring Van Gundy back. Let's go. You know, hire his brother Stan. I know we love him on the broadcast. Bring him back as the lead assistant. Let's have some fun with all this stuff. Let's bring some of the nostalgia back to the Garden. You know, it'll be a lot of fun with all that stuff. I ultimately, though, am going to be fascinated by this process. Are they going to interview a whole bunch of coaches? Like, this is going to be a really interesting one in terms of their process of who they hire, what they're going about, what they're going to value with all that stuff. I will say, for an organization that hadn't been in the conference finals in 25 years, to finally make the conference finals, to fire Thibs is pretty gutsy, being 2 wins away from the championship. And if game one went differently, if a correct goaltending call was made, or if that ball bounces a little bit to the left or the right instead of just straight up, we could be talking about an entirely different finals matchup.
We could be. I still think Indiana would have won the series, but you're right. Like, it could be a different series. I just hope they don't do, you know, Rick Brunson has been hired as the head coach.
No, but he's going to be an assistant on the staff. I can promise you that.
That's for sure. It'd be shocking if they didn't. And I'll tell you what, Mo, I still think they should explore trades for the roster, though. It can't just be a coaching staff change, in my opinion. It can't just be a coach change. There's still tweaks to be made. You still need another big, like, even if it's something around the edges. You still need another big. That's important. Like, it can't just be Mitchell Robinson all year long. Whether it's Haliburton, the backup center, their young big getting more minutes, they need another big still in that rotation. I still think they should look into trading Karl-Anthony Towns. I would look at a KD for Cat trade. Personally, I know that pisses off a lot of Knicks fans. I know KD is old. He's better than Karl-Anthony Towns at this point. He's a better bucket getter still, a better shooter still, and a better defender as well, and a better fit for who they are, as long as they get another big, in my opinion. But I look forward to seeing what the Knicks do. I'm very excited to see what they do, Mo. I do want to, like, kind of on this general theme, though, that we're talking about here when it comes to taking the next step. We're talking about the Knicks here, a surprising firing with Thibs, but with the Minnesota side of things, you look at Indiana, you look at Oklahoma City with the motion and the movement and the amount of ball handlers and creators on the team. I think Ant as well got to take a page out of some of these guys and start moving off ball. The last time he scored off of a cut was game 3 of the second round against the Warriors. He shot only 2 jumpers off the catch from 3 per game as a guy who is a 50% guy in the playoffs, over 40% in the regular season. Getting Ant in motion, using his athleticism on cuts, using his elite shooting that he himself developed, to me, that would make him an all-around threat rather than some of this, stagnant habits he has off ball, standing around. I want to see Ant moving, and that also could be a coaching thing as well with Chris Finch. But Ant himself as well needs to change too.
Yeah, I think before I go into that realm, I mean, my thing is that's a trust of whether you feel like you have enough playmakers or ball handlers that can help put you in those right spots. And listen, sure. Mike Conley's significantly older. Gilgeous-Alexander Walker's fine. Like, I don't see him being that guy. I don't see McDaniels being that guy. Sure,
they don't have the roster. To your point, they don't have enough creators on the roster
to be able to do that. That's if I'm the Wolves, that's really what I'm focused on in the offseason is finding.
That's why they got Dillingham. Ultimately, like that's a part of a disconnect we're talking about here with Conley, the GM of the Wolves, and then the coaching staff with Finch. Conley goes out and drafts Rob Dillingham, trades up for him, and he drafts Terrence Shannon in the late first round. Shannon, we saw a little bit of him. He can create off the dribble. He can attack a closeout. He can make a pass. He's a great athlete. He barely played it all season. Finch throws him out in the postseason, and he has good minutes. Maybe he should have been playing more all year long. Maybe Rob Dillingham should have been playing all year long, and that's the tough part because from a front office perspective, you add these young guys, and you have a vision for how you might want them to play next to Ant, but you need to win games. Like, you're the 6th seed. If you lose 2 more games, you're fighting for a playoff spot in the play-in. Like, it's just like really hard to balance those two things.
Well, it goes to what I was saying about I actually don't blame the coaching staff in that situation.
You don't,
because they had made it. Well, there's reasons why, right? Like, they had made the Cat Randall trade pretty late, right? Like, so they're going into training camp and now figuring out this new world that they live in. They have to get Randall up to speed. They had to get DiVincenzo up to speed. And then it's okay, now we're going to experiment, but we're already in a hole. And like you said, we had to battle to get into the playoffs and to get out of the play-in tournament. Like, that was something that was up in the air towards the last week of the season. Like, you couldn't afford to take, hey, I'm going to take 5 extra losses this season, but it's going to pay off in the playoffs because I'm going to get Dillingham more reps, because those 5 losses might have been, I'm out of the play-in tournament. Like, that's, not even making it to the playoffs or postseason at all. So I felt like they were in a tough position to say, like, okay, we're going to get this guy reps, but there was no real time to live with his mistakes. Like, that's the thing Oklahoma City was able to do this season, right? They were able to live with some of their young guys' mistakes, with how far ahead they were in the West. It's in that situation. Like, when you're able to experiment, it's a luxury in the NBA. That's because you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself, like, we're going to make the playoffs and we'll take whatever loss we have. But I want to go back also to Ant, because the one thing I do want to see him improve on, and I want to see him add to his game, I want to see some more mid-range from him. I want to see him become a 3-level scorer. And he's got the body and the size. I want to see a little more back to the basket game. He needs to be able to punish switches. He needs to be able to put situations where, hey, we could run a cross screen and get Ant a post up. and let's go to work out of that. And I know it's a little challenging with Rudy and spacing and all that stuff, but you need to start adding more versatility to his game. Like the off-ball movement, I think would come if he had another playmaker with him. But I think the other stuff he can add to his game right now, regardless of who's on the roster.
I think that's right, Mo. I mean, look, with him, he's such a threes and layups heavy player. But with him, the body, the athleticism, there's so much room for growth from him from the mid-range. He could become a great mid-range player. And I hope he adds it, even if it means it's going to be more Jordan comps. He's going to embrace it if he's hitting turnaround fadeaways.
Got to do it. I think is the important aspect of it. Is I think he needs to grow. And the other thing we get lost in it too is like he is just 23 years old. 23. He's made 2 conference finals at this point. You know, like this is still a baby out there in terms of learning his game and everything that goes through. Shea's so much older and so much more advanced, but he's had those years and those reps. I think we're getting there with Ant. Like at the end of the day, I have no concerns of Anthony Edwards as a basketball player. Like I'm very confident and very bullish on his future.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, look, he's 23 years old. He's a young player and his best years should be ahead of him as long as they get it right with the roster. And there's very few general managers I'd trust more to figure out than Tim Connelly. I think he has a proven track record, one of the best GMs in basketball. And again, like the Knicks already fired Thibs. They made a tough move. Maybe they'll make more tough moves to take the next step. I look forward to seeing what Minnesota does. Because as you said, Mo, to bring this back to the Pacers and the Thunder, the continuity is part of it. Making tough moves is part of it. Building a system with a ton of guys that can handle the ball and shoot and create and aren't weak links on defense. It's easier said than done what OKC and the Pacers have done. But for a lot of these teams that missed out this year, the Magic have the defense, but they need to have the shooting. The Rockets have the cutting and the selflessness, and they have the defense. They don't have the shooting. They don't have the star. Like up and down these teams that fell short, like there's missing pieces. And there's different blueprints. As you said, teams are going to take different approaches and they're going to try to zag when certain teams are doing things. But I do think, though, with the nature of the game nowadays, 42% of shots came from 3-point range during the regular season. Threes were taken from further away than ever before. Teams are switching screens more than ever before as well. 24.6% of screens were switched this season. On-ball screens are set deeper as well. Like defenders have to cover more ground. They have to rotate longer, cover for longer passes as well. Like horizontally and vertically, defenses are being stretched more than ever. And offenses have to play with that spacing as well. I don't think there's just one way of winning, but I do think it's going to be really hard for teams to win a championship if you do have those types of holes on your team. Boston didn't last year. OKC doesn't this year. And Indiana, to a lesser extent, doesn't either. Depth is going to matter. You can't win anymore with just like 3 max contracts and filling out the roster with league minimum specialists. Like that way is done nowadays.
The one thing I would say, though, is it's really hard to have a team with no holes. Like, look at the way this Thunder team was built. Right, like this team has been largely built through the draft. Obviously, the Paul George trade leading to Shea and all the draft picks that they have. I know they've made tweaks. The Caruso trade, signing Hartenstein, but getting lucky enough to jump from 4 to 2 in the draft to get Chet Holmgren, getting Jalen Williams in the draft. Like these are the things that like it's hard to plug in just holes like that. And I don't think we're in a situation we're gonna see a champion at some point coming in the next few years that's going to have flaws. It's just a question of like, hey, did we run into a team that could take advantage of our flaws? Did we run into a team that were able to, pull on the thread and make that hole even bigger? And I think that's going to be the stuff that you're running into because, I just think it's so hard now to build. It's the new CBA with the first apron, the second apron, all the sort of penalties behind it. It's very difficult to just kind of build throughout that way and to feel like, cool, we're going to build just a flawless team. Like the Pacers have holes. Tyrese Haliburton's not a good defender. Like, we know the Thunder are going to target him defensively. Like, the teams have holes. Can you find a way to minimize them, make them smaller, can we cover them up? Whether it's just a Band-Aid or long enough, can we hold up long enough to get through the finals? The Thunder this year, the Celtics last year are probably the only two teams I would say in the past 5 years of champions where I felt like they had no holes. After that, a lot of the champs had holes.
True. Mel, what's your series prediction?
I'm going Thunder in 5. I want the Pacers to make this a 6-game series. I just think it's going to be really difficult. I think that defense is just so suffocating. And game 5 of Pacers Knicks really kind of showed you how hard it is for the Pacers sometimes to get offense going when there's a lot of pressure and a team's able to exert that pressure. The Knicks weren't able to kind of sustain that. I don't think anybody expected them to sustain that, but that's the Thunder's wheelhouse. That's where they play. That's how they defend. So I think it'll be a tough one for the Pacers.
I feel like I have not heard anybody say anything but OKC in 5, and I also am saying OKC in 5. It just feels like the most logical thing. Indiana steals at least one. Out of respect to them, they take one game. But OKC, I think they're going to prove themselves to be a special team. And ultimately, the crazy thing with OKC, Mo, as young as they are, they could get even better. They could get even better in the years to come. Like, that's just the reality of it. SGA could get better. J-Dub could get better. Chet is going to get better. Those guys are in their young 20s. SGA is only 26. They still have a mountain of draft picks as well to fill gaps if guys leave. Like, they could only get better. It's the crazy thing about this team and where they are now.
The scariest part about this Thunder team is I think they're going to be at their apex once Chet becomes the number 2 option. Whatever
Bingo.
that may be. That's when they hit that level, that's like Godzilla tier, right? Like, that's where we're coming in and going like, oh wow. Like, it did get better. Like, it's going to be terrifying in that way. So what if and when Chet becomes the number 2 guy, this Thunder team is going to go to another level.
I think that's spot on. We're seeing J-Dub make that leap this postseason. There were questions about him as the number 2 guy, and rightfully so after his underwhelming performance in last year's postseason, his underwhelming performances in the NBA Cup. He's been great, especially defensively, but offensively, he's shown a lot. And Chet as well has grown up a lot this postseason. He's only 23 years old, and he missed a whole year. He literally just turned 23 a month ago, I think, like early May. Like, the dude is going to get better. He's going to get better offensively. His handle's going to get better. He'll get better defensively as well. I'm picking OKC in 5, and I don't think this team is going anywhere. I think they're going to be an annual threat. It's just going to be a matter of who in the West can construct their team and feel internal progress enough to challenge them in the years ahead. Well, I hope we get a great series, though. I hope they're epic games. I hope they're great battles. I hope it goes 6 or 7. That's what I want. But I'm thinking OKC in 5, and I just hope it's exciting. I want a great series. We'll see, Mo. I appreciate you joining me today, man.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
Where can we find your stuff, Mo?
You can find me on X, Mo Dakhil _NBA. I'm on all the socials pretty much under that handle. Right for Bleacher Report, I'll have some stuff coming during the during the finals, and then also check out the NBA pregame show with Zach Harper, Alexis Morgan, and myself on all the NBA apps about an hour and a half before game time on all the NBA socials.
And another reminder to listeners and viewers, I'll be on Yahoo Fantasy Plus Discord invite-only server. So go check that out on Thursday ahead of the finals. Mo, thanks for joining me today, man. Have a good day.